Valley of the Dolls is a 1967 American drama film starring Barbara Parkins, Patty Duke, Sharon Tate, Susan Hayward, Paul Burke, and Lee Grant. It was directed by Mark Robson, produced by Robson and David Weisberg. Based on Jacqueline Suzanne's 1966 novel Valley of the Dolls, it follows three women struggling to forge careers in the entertainment industry, each of them descending into barbiturate addiction, dolls being a slang term for depressant pills or downers. Though a box office success, Valley of the Dolls received largely negative reviews from critics upon release. Plot: recent Radcliffe graduate Ann Wells is hired as a secretary at a theatrical agency which represents Helen Lawson, a cutthroat Broadway diva. Helen fears newcomer Neely O'Hara will upstage her, so she has Ann's boss pressure Neely to quit their upcoming show. Ann sours on show business after seeing Helen's cruelty toward Neely, but her boss's business partner, Leon Burke, dissuades her from quitting the agency. Ann and Neely meet Jennifer North, a beautiful chorus girl with limited talent. They become fast friends, sharing the bonds of ambition and the tendency to fall in love with the wrong men. After Leon lands her an appearance on a telethon, Neely mounts a nightclub act. Buoyed by her overnight success, she moves to Hollywood to pursue a lucrative film career. Neely soon succumbs to alcoholism and abuse of the dolls. She betrays her husband, Mel Anderson, by having an affair with fashion designer Ted Casablanca. After Mel leaves her, Neely divorces him and marries Ted. Neely's spiraling drug and alcohol use eventually sabotages her career and ends her second marriage. Ann and Leon start a romance, but Leon resists Ann's wish to marry. When he abruptly leaves for England, Ann is distraught. She is further upset when her mother dies. Soon Ann's poise and natural beauty attract the attention of her boss's client, Kevin Gilmore, who hires her to promote his line of cosmetics in television and print ads. Kevin falls in love with Ann, but their relationship ends amicably when Ann realizes they are incompatible. Jennifer follows Neely's path to Hollywood, where she marries nightclub singer Tony Puller. She becomes pregnant but gets an abortion after learning that Tony has the hereditary condition Huntington's chorea, a fact his domineering half-sister and manager Miriam had been concealing. When Tony's mental and physical health declines, Miriam and Jennifer place him in a sanitarium. Faced with Tony's mounting medical expenses, Jennifer makes French art films, softcore pornography, to pay the bills. Thinking her body is her only currency, Jennifer commits suicide rather than face a mastectomy after learning she has breast cancer. Neely's drug and alcohol abuse land her in the same sanitarium as Tony. After she is released, Leon gets her a role in a Broadway play. Neely soon causes trouble by having an affair with Leon and attending a press party for Helen Lawson. During a catfight in the ladies' room, Neely removes Helen's wig and throws it in the toilet. Leon ends his relationship with Neely when she relapses and is replaced by her understudy. Neely continues her bender at a nearby bar and is left screaming and sobbing in a deserted alley when the bar closes. Upset by Leon's betrayal, Ann dabbles in dolls and almost drowns in the ocean while high. She returns to New England to live with her Aunt Amy. Leon follows Ann to New England and asks her to marry him. She declines his offer and remains happily single and independent. Cast production deviations from novel. The ending to the film was changed dramatically from the novel. In the film, Ann and Leon never marry and do not have a child together. Rather, she leaves Leon and returns to Lawrenceville, which is described as the one place she found real happiness. Leon later visits her to propose, but she refuses. These last-minute changes in the script, so out of keeping with Ann's established character, well known to millions of readers, prompted original screenwriter Harlan Ellison, who wanted to keep the original downbeat ending, to remove his name and credit from the film. Another important difference is that the film is clearly set in the mid to late 1960s and the events unfold over the course of a few years, whereas in the book the story begins in 1945 and develops throughout 2 decades. Casting before filming on Valley of the Dolls started in early 1967. There was much publicity surrounding the casting of Judy Garland as Helen Lawson. Garland had not made a motion picture in 5 years. Her last film, I Could Go On Singing, was filmed in 1962 and released in March 1963. Despite decent reviews, it was a box office failure. Shortly thereafter, Garland embarked on a weekly CBS television variety series, The Judy Garland Show, in the fall of 1963. Although it was favorably reviewed by the press, the ratings were low and it was cancelled. Aired in the spring of 1964. By 1967, Garland was thin, frail, in dire financial straits, and desperate for work. 20th Century Fox then signed her to appear as Helen Lawson in the film version of Valley of the Dolls. According to Gerald Frank, The author of the biography Judy, Garland was to receive $75,000 for 8 weeks of work, then $25,000 a week if she was needed longer. This would also include her singing one song in the film. In March 1967, Garland flew to New York to attend the wedding of her daughter singer-dancer Liza Minnelli to Australian performer Peter Allen and to meet with the author of Valley of the Dolls, Jacqueline Suzanne, at a press conference to promote the upcoming film. In addition, both Garland and Suzanne appeared as the mystery guests on the CBS TV game show What's My Line on Sunday, March 5, 1967, to further plug and publicize the film. Garland then returned to Hollywood to start work on the film. At first, all went well. Garland filmed some costume tests for the role and successfully pre-recorded the song, I'll Plant My Own Tree. However, after a week's shooting, she was unable to function and was heavily dependent not only on alcohol but also Demerol. Suzanne, who was cast in a bit part in the film and was sharing Garland's dressing room at the time, found the drug on the floor in her closet. As a result, with no footage deemed usable, Garland was fired by Fox. She begged them to give her another chance, but the studio refused. They did, however, agree to pay her half of her promised fee, $37,500, for her time. Garland was also given the copper-colored sequined pantsuit designed by Travilla for the film, which she wore during her final New York Palace Theater engagement in August 1967. Patty Duke told an audience at a screening of the film at the Castro Theater on July 20, 2009 that director Mark Robson made Garland wait from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. before filming her scenes for the day, knowing that she would be upset and drunk by that time. In her 1987 autobiography Call Me Anna, Duke felt that Garland had been deliberately exploited by the studio. She wrote, "The producers may have felt justified in hiring her in the first place. They had gotten their PR mileage out of the situation. That Judy comeback stories had created extraordinary publicity for the film, and now she was expendable." Academy Award winner Susan Hayward replaced Garland in the role. Hayward reportedly had a difficult relationship with the cast and crew, and her clashes with Duke became part of the dramatic tension between their characters. 20th Century Fox wanted contract star Raquel Welch to play Jennifer, but she turned it down, not wanting to play a sexbot role. She asked to play Neely, but the studio refused. Release: the film had its world premiere in Genoa, Italy, on November 16, 1967. Following the premiere, the press boarded the cruise ship Princess Italia for a screening on the way to the Canary Islands. The ship then headed to Miami, where the U.S. premiere took place on November 28. Further premieres took place along the route until the ship arrived in Los Angeles for a final premiere on December 14. It opened at the Criterion Theater in New York City on December 15, 1967. Box office: the film grossed $50 million worldwide against a $5 million budget. According to Fox Records, the film needed to earn $9,700,000 in rentals to break even and made $22,925,000, meaning it made a profit, making it Fox's highest-grossing film at the time not to have a roadshow theatrical release. For 7 weeks, December 27, 1967, Feb. 13, 1968, Valley of the Dolls was the #1 most profitable motion picture in America. Critical response review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes has a 35% rating based on 37 reviews. The critical consensus reads, "Trashy, campy, soapy, and melodramatic, Valley of the Dolls may be a dud as a Hollywood exposé, but has nonetheless endured as a kitsch classic." Leonard Maltin's TV Movies gives the film a bomb rating, stating, "Scattered unintentional laughs do not compensate for terribly written, acted and directed adaptation of Jacqueline Suzanne's bestseller." The film was included in the 1978 book The 50 Worst Films of All Time, and How They Got That Way, by Harry Medved, Randy Dreyfuss, and Michael Medved. Home Media: The Criterion Collection released Valley of the Dolls along with its parody Beyond the Valley of the Dolls in September 2016 on DVD and Blu-ray. While the latter film had previously been released by Arrow Films in the United Kingdom in the same year, this was the first Blu-ray release for Valley of the Dolls. Legacy: the film has developed a cult following, with critics and audiences citing its campy sensibility. The film is particularly celebrated by gay men for its campiness and has become part of the LGBT cultural canon. Accolade soundtrack-related works: Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, a 1970s satirical pastiche of Valley of the Dolls, was Phil. Med by 20th Century Fox while the studio was being sued by Jacqueline Suzanne, according to Irving Mansfield's book Life with Jackie. Suzanne created the title for a Gene Holloway scripted sequel that was rejected by the studio, which allowed Russ Meyer to film a radically different film with the same title. The suit went to court after Suzanne's death in 1974. The estate won damages of $2 million against Fox. Two updated versions of the Jacqueline Suzanne novel were later broadcast as TV series: Jacqueline Suzanne's Valley of the Dolls, 1981, starring Catherine Hicks, Lisa Hartman, Veronica Hamill and David Burney. Valley of the Dolls, 1994, starring Sally Kirkland, Colleen Morris, Melissa D'Souza and Sharon Case. See also List of American films of 1967. References External links Valley of the Dolls at the American Film Institute Catalog, Valley of the Dolls at AllMovie, Valley of the Dolls at IMDb, Valley of the Dolls at Rotten Tomatoes, Valley of the Dolls. This Merry-Go-Round, an essay by Glenn Kenny at the Criterion Collection.